G'day guys, Tim here. Hope everyone's having a great week so far. Today we're talking some new results that have come out from a study done by the Grattan Institute. The biggest headline that we've seen across the news media today is that if you don't own a home by the age of 35, you'll probably never own it outright. So basically what they're talking about is how younger people are being left behind, and primarily because and look, one of the facts that we've got to get straight as well is that 30% of people that enter retirement with a mortgage, okay? So while most people have this concept that they're going to buy a house, own the house, pay it off over 30 years, and their house is going to build them wealth, what most people are finding is that they're getting to retirement and they have still got a mortgage. Now, I don't know about you, but the pension isn't much, and if you've got to pay a mortgage, that's getting pretty tough. Now, essentially, you know, if we dig a little bit deeper into this study and the research and I guess the conclusions that were drawn by the Grattan Institute, the biggest thing that they were finding is that young Australians are being left behind. We saw property ownership rates significantly decrease, particularly in the 25 to 34 bracket. We are seeing some of the older Australians continue to build their wealth, but as we get into the younger age brackets, even for people between the ages of 45 and 54, what we're seeing overall is that their ownership rates are decreasing. Now, of course, this has got a lot to do with house prices, but one of the other things that really does come into it as well is that for a lot of the older Australians, particularly people that either have already entered retirement or are very close to entering retirement, there was significant tax breaks available around the superannuation not that long ago. If we look back at the days of the Howard government, and since the GFC, these things have been unwound, and so most everyday Aussies that have now got their super are unable to access these breaks. Now, like I said, property still is though one of the key factors, and look, particularly if we look at Sydney and Melbourne, they've seen significant increases over the past couple of years. Don't worry though if you're in places more like Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, Darwin, those rises are coming. We always see Sydney market move first, Melbourne second, Brisbane third. We've already seen a lot of activity happening in Brisbane. And Perth, obviously, that's now rebounded off the bottom, and I think we're going to see some pretty solid growth over the coming years when it comes to Perth. But look, one of the main reasons why young people are being locked out of property ownership is just really the way that we look at property ownership, and the traditional, conceptions around or preconceived notions around home ownership are just completely and utterly wrong. We talk about home ownership as the great Australian dream, many people not realising that the great Australian dream is a marketing campaign created by the banks after 1945. And really what's happened is we've been conditioned into believing that, the symbol of prosperity and security is home ownership. I can understand a lot of people, might think the same, but if we really start to break down and analyse the numbers and the figures when it comes to the way that people traditionally own homes, that's where a lot of people are getting stuck out. So let's first of all talk about buying a home. Okay, so, the reason why a lot of us buy a home is because, what we get told is that this is the single best thing that we can do with our money. Whereas if we actually run the numbers, we've seen a lot of, a lot more prominence around the idea of rent vesting. Rent vesting is a new term, and it's only been around for about a year or so. But, this is something that me and many other Australians have been doing for, I've been rent vesting, so to speak, for, 20 odd years now. So, and this is because there are so many benefits in actually not living the home that you own. Okay, now I'm not saying don't own property. You definitely do want to own property, but you just don't necessarily want to live in that property. Okay, so it enables you to buy something that's in a better investment area for your budget, rather than struggling to have that budget suit where it is that you want to live. Okay, firstly, that's the first thing. Cash flow wise, because of the tax deductions involved, it's cheaper to actually do it. You can actually go and rent a place that's in a more suitable area, in an area that you more want to live as a first home buyer, someone younger, closer to the city. And of course, then you're also left with more disposable income. Okay, so it is a much cheaper, it is a much faster, and it is a much smarter way to build wealth through property. By rent vesting rather than owning the home that you live in. The other thing that we've got to really also start to confront is the way that most people live in their homes. The average Australian, according to some statistics that I found not that long ago, refinances their home loan every 5 to 7 years. So, a lot of people think in that 5 to 7 years, maybe what they're doing is they're upgrading their home, getting a bigger mortgage, they're moving into a different home, who knows, maybe they're downgrading their home, but definitely no matter what's happening is they're refinancing their loan. Now, if you just think about this for a second, when you're paying off a mortgage, particularly when the mortgage is first starting, most of that mortgage payment is interest. There's very little of that payment which is actually coming off the principal. Now, as you start to get further and further into that mortgage, the element of that mortgage payment that is interest slowly decreases, and what happens is the element that's more principal starts to increase. Okay, but what happens is people do all of this hard work to get their interest component down, and then after 5 to 7 years, what they do is they refinance. Now, what does that really mean for their mortgage? What it means is that it closes it down, and then they reopen it, starting back at day zero, where they've got the largest interest component. So people really put themselves back by refinancing. Okay, so typically the biggest things that I think that are really facing people is not only the concept of home ownership, but secondly, how we hold on to a home. Now, what does this mean for people who are under 35? Look, I mean, let me give you an example. Rent vesting. We show clients every single day how they can own a home for $50 a week. Okay, and I mean own a full proper home. Okay, all they're doing is they're using that property as an investment property, and then they're going and renting where they want to live. In fact, many of our clients, it's costing less than they spend on coffee a week to actually get into home ownership. So, look, I think, while these stats are pretty shocking, one of the things that we really need to deal with is that the way that we're approaching investing in home ownership is clearly wrong. Okay, guys, so that's really all I wanted to touch base on today. Just a short Facebook Live, but we saw the report come out today, and we've gotten a fair amount of questions and things like that about it, so I just wanted to get on and talk a little bit more about it. But look, guys, that's really all there is for me tonight. If you're someone who's, regardless of whether you're under 35 or not, you want to find out how to get onto the property ladder, how you can build a large asset base, and how you can make sure that you're going to be secure in retirement, then you've got to reach out. All right, guys, let us show you what we can do. Okay, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Speak to you guys soon.